going, everyone? I am back with another 9.5 video today. So this car is still not registered. I've had the car now for about a week and a half, so by the time you guys are seeing this video it should be registered, but in order to get it registered I need to get it through emissions here, which means it can't have a check engine light on. And it has a check engine light on, which you guys saw at the end of last video. It had 3 codes. I'll put them here on the screen. And all 3 of those codes are related to the DI cassette. So I have replaced the DI cassette, cleared the codes. The car needs to go through a good drive cycle. So hopefully I can get it through emissions here soon. But that's not going to be what today's video is about. What today's video is about is going to be replacing the valve cover gasket on this car and also talking about all the places that this thing leaks oil from. But before we do that, I want to play a clip of me putting new hood struts in that I am very happy about, because I was using wood to hold up the hood before, but it is now safe to put my head under here without running the risk of getting decapitated. Pretty great, huh? Working hood struts. Who would have thought? Anyways, I don't know why I was so excited about doing that on this car. But now to talk about where this thing leaks oil from. We're not going to be fixing most of these in today's video because I just put in a parts order as I'm filming this for all the new seals and O-rings and everything that I need. But today, as I said, we're going to be doing a valve cover gasket replacement because it does leak out of the valve cover. It might not look like it right now, but there was a ton of oil there before we sprayed it down with some brake cleaner the other day. I spoke to one of my good friends, Shane. He is in North Carolina. Some of you might know him. He has a Swedish shop out there with his family, and they are very, very, very knowledgeable on Saabs. I did a video on his big turbo Vigan a couple years ago by now, so click up here in the top corner and watch that if you haven't already. One of the most fun Saabs by far I have ever been in. Super cool car. But anyways, he is super knowledgeable on T7s and just Saabs as a whole, and he gave me a lot of good insight as to where this car is leaking oil from. So as I said, it smokes really bad off of the exhaust. I was under the car yesterday with him on the phone, just kind of poking around, and we determined there's a few places it's leaking from. One is the oil pump O-ring, which is a very common leak spot on these motors. The second is the front crank seal. He said when we were looking at it, and I'm sorry I don't have any footage of this, but there was, like, the inside of this fender liner, when I pulled that back, the inside of the fender liner was literally just caked in oil right by the crank seal and that whole area. So I ordered a new one of those. I also ordered a new oil pressure switch because that's another common leak spot, and that's also on the back of the motor. And then lastly, I also ordered, well, I guess I didn't order, a new PCV box O-ring, because I definitely saw a ton of oil coming out of where those lines go into the PCV box down there. And I guess they don't sell just the O-ring itself, so what I'm going to have to do is, when I replace that, go to an auto parts store and find an O-ring that'll fit. So that's all the spots that it is leaking oil from. But eventually we're going to get through it, and then we can start to work on other things that this car needs. It also needs an oil change, probably. So I don't know when I'll do that, but obviously I'm not driving it much because it's not registered, so I guess for the time being it doesn't matter a ton. But anyways, let's go ahead and get into this valve cover gasket replacement. If you guys missed my recent video, because I've been talking a lot and there hasn't been any action, I did the valve cover gasket on my 2.093. This one should be a little bit more straightforward because there's a little bit less that we have to remove to get the valve cover off. So that'll be cool, and there's actually a specific pattern that you use when you put them back in. You don't just kind of do crisscross or whatever when you're putting the bolts back in. So anyways, let's go ahead. I'm going to shut up, get to it, get this valve cover off, and pray there's not a ton of sludge under this thing. Let's start with the DIC right here, the dick. Remember how I told you guys that I had cleaned all this oil up on the valve cover? I cleaned down in here probably less than a week ago, and look at how much oil is already down in there, leaking from the inside of the valve cover. Looks like it's coming really bad from there, and also pretty bad back in that corner right there. But holy heck, that is ridiculous. That is a lot of oil in a short period of time. I'm gonna pop off this vacuum line that goes into the Cobra pipe here. If you just push down on this red clip, it'll pop right out. pretty simple, and it'll also just pop right off of these metal clips here. Getting this thing off was a pain. I just twisted it probably about 45 degrees very carefully until it came up over this little edge right here, and it just popped back and off. But that's a little bit sketchy doing. Looks like we have some more vacuum lines attached back here that we can just pop off. And now, honestly, as I'm looking around, I don't really see anything else that really needs to be undone before we start taking off these valve cover bolts. So these are T40s. I'm gonna loosen them in a crisscross pattern just to be safe, but it probably doesn't matter too much at the end of the day. So I was looking around, I hit it with a mallet and I couldn't get it popped off, so I was just kind of seeing where would be a good spot to stick a flathead in. Right here there's like a nice fat piece of rubber. I just stuck the flathead in and just pried up just a tiny bit and it came loose. Yeah, this gasket has definitely seen better days. Wow, this is bad. It doesn't look like there's a bunch of sludge. Bad news, this gasket is in about 1,000,000 different pieces right here. So this is going to take a while to clean up. I mean, it's not really a surprise that the gasket was kind of stuck on there and everything, but you can see it's like, maybe when it got reinstalled it got pinched or something, but like that's part of the gasket right there. It's just all messed up. But yeah, honestly, I mean, look at this. There's not a ton of sludge. I mean, this oil is absolutely disgusting. Like I'd mentioned, I'd plan on doing an oil change anyways. But guys, this could be much, much worse. I honestly was expecting it to be pretty bad under here, but I'm pretty psyched about that. That's not bad at all. So now it's time for the long, boring, and tedious part, which is cleaning this similar to what I did on my 2.0. I'm going to be using some Scotch-Brite very gently, some brake cleaner and just general cleaner, being very careful not to spray or get too much of it or any of it really into the engine itself, and then doing the same thing on the valve cover as well. So I'll catch up with you guys in a few. More like an hour probably. It's been 20 minutes. I've gotten this little stretch done right here. There's just so much gasket just burned up and stuck inside here that this is just going to be an extremely long process. It has been over an hour, and if I flip this over, it looks pretty damn amazing. So because the outside of this looks so gross too, I mean, you can just see how dirty and like corroded and everything that is. I'm just using some more brake cleaner and some very like 2500 grit sandpaper and the Scotch-Brite just to kind of like help smooth this back out. I was thinking about painting it, but I really like the look of the silver with the black DI cassette, so I'm just going to leave it there. 2 hours later. It's not perfect by any means. Definitely not perfect, but it like has some shine to it and it looks so good. I've got my valve cover gasket right there. I've got my RTV right here. We're going to pull this out. We're going to put a little bit of RTV spray around to help the valve cover stick, or the gasket stick I should say, and then we're going to let it dry, and while it dries I'm going to do that, clean that all up. I already got the valve cover gasket on here just to make sure it fits, so I'm just going to go around and peel it up in some areas. So I've let this dry with the RTV for a few minutes. This is all cleaned up in here, so it's time to reinstall it and then tighten all these bolts down. I'm going to put a photo on the screen right here. This will show you the exact pattern that you need to tighten these bolts down to, and you're going to tighten them down to 11 foot-pounds. So pause the video back when I had that on the screen if you're doing this job, because I'm just going to time lapse over it, so it might be hard to follow exactly which bolt I'm doing. the car is all back together. That is one oil leak fixed, although honestly maybe the least worrisome of them all, but it's the only one I had parts to fix for right now. So I think that's going to wrap up this video, just because it's been a very long day. This took a lot of time to clean up, but it's looking very shiny, probably similar to what it looked like when it was new. So I thought about painting it maybe to match the Arbor Green exterior, but I just didn't have time to get a can of paint made, and I didn't really feel like bothering with it. But I'm happy with how this looks. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments, and if you've dealt with any of these other leaks that I'm going to be fixing here on your 9.5 at some point. And make sure to check out my Patreon, because I just keep putting in more and more parts orders on this car. But make sure to give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.